Gonna call this meeting order so we can get in and get out in a couple, 2 or 3 hours maybe. If you'll rise for the pledge by me and Jim, Mr. Jim Trippett on the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we love you and we thank you, God, for all the many blessings that you've given us. Father, we do thank you for our town, our community, our city, Lord. You've been so good to us, and we thank you for the many blessings that you've bestowed upon us, Lord. Father, we thank you especially for this most holy of weeks, Lord, where we celebrate and observe and thank you for your supreme sacrifice for our sins, Lord. Father, as we meet and discuss the business of the city, we ask, Lord, for your wisdom, your guidance and direction. And Father, as bad weather approaches tonight, Lord, we ask that you place your hedge of protection around us all and bring us safely through. Thank you for this food, nourishment of our bodies. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Amen.
All righty, well, thank everybody for being here. You put up the agenda. Is that mine? What we'd like to do tonight, just for the sake of time, Jim is going to go through all the revenues. What the point we want to make is how low our millage rate is. It's the lowest in the area. How low our water and sewer rates are, and how low our sanitation rates are, and in spite of that, and what a tiny fraction of our revenue is based on taxes, and in spite of that, what a great level of service we have here. We are presenting to you a budget that includes a 3% COLA. It includes the $1,000 Christmas bonus. I know a lot of times we deal with that later in the year, and we wanted to put it in on the front end so that we didn't have to wrestle with that issue. But the final budget is about $860,000 less than it was last year. So in spite of all that we just said that we added to this, and all the capital we're going to talk to you about, we've cut our budget by about $860,000. So those are the major points. Again, Jim's going to go through revenues. He's going to talk about everything down to SPLOST. He's going to give you comparison to our neighboring cities and to the county. Then we need to go through capital projects that we have either planned to do or really, really need to do. And I would like to move executive session to item 3, and then this is what the mayor and I had talked about yesterday. And then item 4 would be to go through the detailed budgets. If we do not get to the budgets, if you choose to not go through those tonight, Libby has put a summary sheet in front of every department. This is laid out in such a way that you can see what the increases and the decreases were, and it's very self-explanatory. Libby, just for the sake of kicking this off, can you put this fund change summary sheet up, please? And then I'll let Jim do his thing. There's a sheet in here, it's page 3-1, and I'll talk more about it later, but I'm just telling you, it is done fund by fund and all funds, the increases and decreases. And again, under personnel services, there's a 3% raise. We estimated an 8% increase to health care, health insurance, and so that's the increases there. I believe we added one person to the entire city budget. Added one employee, and we'll talk about that specifically later. We cut many out and we added some back, but the net increase was 1. But you'll see at the bottom that we cut capital outlay by $3.194 million total, and the total decrease in the budget is, and the actual number is $882,125. So very proud of the hard work that everybody did. And with that said, Jim, if you would start and talk about revenues.
Thank you.
Do you need a pointer?
I've got one.
Okay.
If everyone would turn to page 1-1 in your packet tonight. We will start off with the general fund. This chart should look familiar to you. This is in your budget document each year. And it's just basically a very general pie chart breakdown of general fund revenues. I will point out and say that these are draft numbers. We'll make a couple of final computations in the coming weeks before you get your final document in the latter part of May, but these numbers will not materially change, and so we do have a lot of confidence in those numbers. Estimate right now of $27.6 million represents an approximate 3% growth in revenues from the current fiscal year. And we break these down in just real general summary terms. Libby, do you have on the bottom part of that? There you go. Ad valorem, 18%, and that's real property tax ad valorem, personal property tax ad valorem, vehicle property tax ad valorem. Most of these percentages are very similar to current and prior fiscal years. Sales tax, 17%. I'm going to talk about that in just a little more detail in just a second. Franchise fees, electrical, telecommunications, cable, natural gas, 10% of our revenue mix. Intragovernmental revenue, 26%. That's by far the largest percentage of our general fund revenue. To give you an idea of what all makes up that $7.3 million, our fire reimbursement from the county, $716,000. Our recreation reimbursement for the county, $75,000. Our drug task force reimbursement, $60,000. We've got a nutrition grant revenue at the recreation department for senior citizen meals, $165,000. We've got school board reimbursement, school crossing guards, school resource officer, $125,000. And then we've got our CBB reimbursement at approximately $160,000. And then the remainder of that amount is the indirect cost allocation, the fund transfers from the utility funds, and the salary reimbursement from the utility funds. So that's basically the mix for the $7.3 million to the general fund. Fines and forfeitures, $1.1 million, roughly 4% of our general fund balance. Insurance premium tax, 7%. This has been a great source of revenue for the general fund year in, year out, and it's always had a healthy growth rate, and so we're going to continue that. We're going to talk about the growth rate just a little bit. About 7% of our total revenue mix for the general fund. Occupation license tax, I think Eric is going to talk about that in just a second. But not too many years ago, we were struggling to get to $1 million. We're forecasting about 1.4 right now, doing very, very well.
Let me pause you there just a minute, Jim, and I will defer to Eric on this.
Yep.
I know that the grandfather clause that we eliminated, that I know that there's a much of this increase is due to that. Was it a little over $200,000?
So it was a little over 200 from 2017, which was with the grandfather clause in place, to 2018 without it in place. It's a combination of the grandfather clause being removed, probably an increase in the economy, and then also I feel like our collection method has gotten better. So.
Thank you.
Other tax revenues, $950,000. Most of that, $800,000 of that is beer and wine tax, and so that's where we classify that. And then $120,000 energy excise tax, and then we've got a small $30,000 for intangible tax. So that makes up approximately 3% of the general fund revenue mix. License and permits, we are alcohol license permits, building fund permits, and then our charges for service. That's going to be our user fees for recreation, cultural arts, and so those percentages and mix makes up the general fund. We're going to talk about this a little more in detail. Libby, if you'll go to the first Encode spreadsheet. Current property tax, the situation that we're dealing with right now, our current budget is $3,856,000. You see we're keeping that at $3,856,000. You know, about 3 years ago, we did the big reassessment. We kept our millage rate, did not roll back. We gained over $300,000. Well, we were anticipating a 2 to 3% digest growth this current year. And I think it was a little less than 1%. And basically, we still have the situation going on, which we don't have any control over. There's still a lot of property appeals, and it seems to be that the Board of Assessors are still pretty aggressively rolling back when appeals come in. So we're going to probably finish this year between $3.6 and $3.7 million. And so I just feel like it's going to be good to keep that where that is and let that actual collection catch up with that. And I think we'll be close this current year. The other thing, the sales, let's see, franchise fees, Georgia Power, we're forecasting from just a little over 1.6 million.
That is working on it.
1,650,000. Sales tax revenue. Erica talks about the good economy has a good effect on occupational tax. The same thing is happening with sales tax. We're at 4.2 million budget right now. We're on track to collect just shy of $4.6 million. So things are going very well at the local level, economy-wise. Occupation tax, I budgeted for $1,400,000, and Erica was showing me some internal work papers that she had put together. And she and I had not talked about this, and I told her what I'd put in the budget, so we were really close on our thinking. I talked about insurance premium tax being a very good source. Our current budget $1,720,000. If we keep the same growth rate, which I think we will come in at probably 1.8, right at under 1.9 million, just under, so things are going well with that. Alcohol beverage license, $300,000. And building, plumbing, electrical permits related to construction, $200,000. It's been a long time since I've been comfortable putting a $200,000 number in that revenue line item, but you can see we're at 162 right now as of the end of March. So it looks like hopefully if things keep going that we can meet that. Let's see, turn the page to 1-3. These are all of our user fees for recreation and cultural arts. Maybe if you'll scroll on down the page there. I guess there's a lot of them. We won't go line item by line item, but going down to the very bottom. There you go. 2.9 to 3,062,000. That's rough numbers, a 3% increase on that as well. And if you'll turn the page to 1-4. The big thing I want to talk about on this page, interest income. For years and years, if you remember, we've been struggling at about $10,000. Well, finally rates have started trending upward enough. Our general fund operating account, where we keep our reserve fund, so to speak, we converted that to a money market account, and it went to just under 2%. And so you see that we're getting finally some decent returns on interest income now. And so with the rates trending upward, we should be getting in the 2.25 range on interest income this coming year. And I always like that. That's free money. We don't have to do a thing to get it. So, scroll on down to the bottom, Luke, if you would. And as I said, total estimated revenue $27.6 million, as opposed to our current budgeted revenue $26.8 million, approximately 3% growth. Any questions or comments before we move on to the water fund?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Ad valorem, we've collected 93% of our expected
Yes, sir.
in our year-to-date.
Yes, sir.
And we're expecting to only hit that amount, even though we're at 93% and we're more
Yes.
than three-quarters
Basically,
through.
Roy, the way that works, our collection months, basically November, December, January, February, and then after that, it starts trailing on down because the due date has come and gone, the penalties assessed. So starting in really March all the way to next October, collections will be very minimal.
Thank you.
So it's not an even month-to-month collection cycle. So. Moving on then to water. We were forecasting a total of 18.3 million, and that is down. We had in like current year's budget, well, let me back up on that. Let me back up. 18.3 million budgeted revenue for water and sewer. Libby, go down to the next bracket here. There you go. Water sales, we're forecasting 8.7 million, and that's 47% of the water budget. Sewer sales, 5.6 million, 31%. Water sewer taps, 704%. Other fees miscellaneous, and basically other fees miscellaneous are the surcharge dumping fees, 750,000, penalty revenue of 225, and then rents of $120,000, where the cell phone carriers put their antennas on top of our water tanks. So that's another good source of free money. And then based on the budget we're going to talk about in just a little bit, the construction projects, we are estimating using water fund balance in the amount of $2.2 million, and that makes up a funding source of approximately 12% for our water. So all those added together total $18,357,000.
And let me pause a minute there too, if you don't mind,
Yes,
please.
sir.
The, again, that's taken out of savings, $2.2 million. So we actually are budgeting to bring in a little over $15 million. Excuse me, a little over $16 million. We generally bring in even more than we budget. So you will see us every year talk about a fund balance allocation, and yet you turn around and you look at the balance and it doesn't drop a lot. So those are very healthy funds. They're carrying the general fund. We tend to understate revenue. We tend to overstate expenses, and we are wrong in our direction both times. We tend to make more money than we say. We tend to spend more money than we tell you we're going to spend. And so even though this budget's drawing $2.2 million out of the bank, this past year was probably one of the most capital intense years this city's ever seen, and we still have an extremely healthy cash reserve. So I guess what I'm trying to say is don't let that number scare you. But we need to show a balanced budget, and that's why these numbers are listed that way. Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Ken, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Out of all this is revenue. What's the cost for us to generate water, sewer?
Oh, we'll show you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these numbers are assuming a 3% rate increase. Those numbers estimate using a 3% rate increase.
So we're bumping the water bill and the sewer bill is 3% again this year, is that correct?
That's the recommendation, yes, sir. But again, in defense of that, in a few minutes, he's going to show you the comparisons to the neighbors, and we're so much lower than everybody else that we think it's the right thing to do.
Next, page 1-6. This was as of March the 31st, and year-to-date actual, I was checking, making sure our projections, I initially did the projections in late February, early March, and these still hold good, but we're only meeting our target, but we're trending 2 or 3% ahead in water sales and sewer sales, so things are looking really good with that. Water sewer tap sales, we've booked $896,000 current year. Sewer surcharge dumping fees, we've booked $844,000 current year. Penalty revenue for late payment on utility bills, $178,000. And then the rents that I was talking about for the water tower, $116,000 that we booked. And so the only other thing, Libby, if you'll scroll down just a little bit. Last year, or in our current year, we had budgeted $3.1 million to keep the loan proceeds. That is in relation to the water reservoir across the river from the filter plant. And I'll let Tim speak on that. He knows more about that than I do, but we've taken that out of the budget.
You know, the bottom line was we didn't get EPD approval yet from Safe Dams, and so I know some of y'all wanted to hear a lot more explanation about why we need it, and I'll be glad to go through that tonight. But since they haven't approved it, I won't waste your time with it. I mean, I feel strongly we're gonna have to have it as we have growth, we're gonna have to have that to manage our reservoirs, but there's no point in you know, talking about it tonight. When we get approval by Safe Dams, and they've been known to take several years to approve plans, then it'll be the time to have that discussion.
And with that being said, the reservoir's been taken out of the capital expenditure budget, and this revenue line item has been removed as well. So, anyway, that's the reason for that not being in the budget. Moving on to page 1-7 for sanitation. Assuming a 3% rate increase in sanitation as well. Our current budget's 4.5. We're actually trending just a little bit ahead of that. And we're forecasting with a 3%, 4.8 million. Mike had to buy 2 new garbage trucks. Was it 2 last year, Mike? And we're not having to buy any this year, but our landfill fees are going up due to increased use and tonnage. And so the cost of revenue fund, it's like everything else, it's moving up each year.
And again, to make a point there, we cannot landfill brush. Am I right on this, Mike?
Correct.
Okay. We could grind it and store it, or we can take it to a legal landfill, and we went from paying 0 on brush to $50 a ton. So that's the increase here. Garbage is only $39 a ton. Because my thought was, well, let's just put it in with the garbage, but that's not legal. So, and if we were to pile it up, it's only going to get more expensive. We're going to get rid of it one day. So we made the decision to pay now as opposed to paying. There'll be leachate running out of piles. There'll be piles catching on fire. And so for now, we just felt like this was the right thing to do.
I had a question right there.
Yes, sir.
Mike, have we ever considered having like a public compost heap for people to come and like maybe grinding that and allowing people to come and get a scoop of it?
Yeah.
Or is it a waste of time, you think, and money?
Well,
Okay.
it's like Tim said, it's gonna sit there, there's gonna be a leach agent, and then there's, all of some of the regulations.
Okay, that's okay.
If you make it official compost, they make you, it has to be concreted, it has to be covered, and it has to be turned every so many days. So it's a nightmare. Because we'd like to take our sludge, our sewer sludge, and mix with it. And we have people approach us all the time, and Tony can tell you it's cost prohibitive. It's 10 years ago, it was $70-something a ton with a deal with it that way, and we were spending about 39 back then. So we'd love to do it, but it doesn't work. So
On page 1-8, as Tim was speaking earlier, millage rate survey, West Georgia comparison, Northwest Metro comparison. They kind of speak for themselves. Not much to say about it, except we're the lowest.
significantly lower.
Yeah.
I got a son lives in I would consider it Bowden Junction, but he's in the city limits of Mount Zion and has no service and pays 50% more tax than he would if he lived here.
On page 1-9, we did a quick tax comparison of surrounding jurisdictions. You see $200,000 house, fair market value. Our property tax bill would be about $350. And of course, this is a city school. They have a higher millage rate for the schools, 1406. We just wanted to throw that in there, but then all the other jurisdictions, just regular city or county M&O. And you see there again, translating into bill amounts, we're lowest by far.
So again, that's worth noticing if somebody had a $200,000 home, their tax bill in the city would be about $400. We're only getting $350 of that. So when people talk about are there other cities below that? Can that be rolled up? Okay, that's it. I'm sorry. That's fine. I just think that's extremely important for people to know, because they're obviously always concerned about taxes. And I don't think there's any comparison to the level of service that we have versus any of those other towns.
I got a question. You guys do a fund transfer to the water fund?
From the water to
From
the general fund.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
sorry. And what we've been doing is moving up our water rates 3% each year in an effort to not raise property tax. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we are bumping up rates on water each year 3%, and then moving that money from one account to another to be able to cover a deficit in our operating budget because we're unwilling to bump up property taxes? Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, that's a decision that you all have to make as an elected body, in that, assuming, yes.
What's a meal worth, Jim?
Rough number's $800,000.
And we're transferring what, 2.3 million to actually carry the general fund?
Yeah.
Just from the water fund.
Just from the water fund, yeah.
Right now, current budget, fund transfer from the water to general, a little over 2.5,
Okay.
and then fund transfer from the sanitation to the general, 500,000. And we try to earmark that 500,000 for street paving infrastructure projects within the general fund.
So you'd have to raise it. How many mills? You do it, Jim. I just did something.
2.5, yeah.
Yeah.
Which would still be in line with the lowest amount of our neighboring cities.
True.
What's the position from staff on choosing a more aggressive way of taxing versus progressive?
It's all money, and for some reason, there's less noise made about water bills than there are about taxes. But we're still lower in either way. Even when we raise the water rate, we're still so much lower. He's gonna show you that in a minute. We're so much lower than the neighbors. Can you put that slide up, Jim, or Libby?
We did, and we've got a rate comparison sheet, but we did a sample billing based on current rates. Carrollton, for Carroll County Water Authority, Billerica, City of Temple, and you can see we're by far the cheapest for 10 units of water and sewer. And no comparison.
Jim, what's a unit? I'm sorry.
It's 750, it's 100 cubic feet. And this is something they dreamed up years ago, and changing it is a major ordeal, so.
I was just curious.
And so 10 units is about 7,500 gallons of water, and that's pretty close to an average water usage for a family in this country.
And then,
You say 500.
that's in your binder, but these are the actual rates for the water sewer services in each of the jurisdictions. Carrollton, Carroll County, Douglasville, Coweta, Billerica, Newman, City of Temple, City of Mount Zion.
And we based it on 10 units because some systems will charge a bigger base rate, some system will charge a bigger base rate, but they'll give you 3,000 gallons. So we have to pick an amount and calculate the whole bill. It's not a straightforward calculation. So that's the reason for doing it that way. But again, we're so much lower than anybody else bumping the water bill. I don't, Jim, I don't know that, Becky's not here tonight, but we get very few calls over it.
You may have said already how it equates down to dollars based on the standard units that you just talked about. I might not have heard that.
Can you y'all bump back a slide,
Okay.
please?
I'm sorry.
That's fine. But again,
Just if you know right away, I don't want to waste your time.
standard water and sewer bill here would be, for a family of four, would be about $73. And again, if you're in the county, the only place they have sewer is Fairfield, it'd be around 102. In the city of Billerica, it'd be about 115, and Temple about 112.
And that's actual, not projected, right?
If they use 10 units of water, that would be actual, yes, sir,
Okay, yes.
per month. And we make money on our system. These other systems are losing. The reason is they have a lot of debt, and we don't have debt. We have very little debt because we do our engineering in-house, and we do a lot of our construction in-house, and we know a lot about it. We manage it well. So that's how these systems get in trouble, is not really knowing what they're buying or what they're building, and they wind up, I think Billerica owes $30 million on their sewer plant.
And they can't.
Our debt in our water fund is $6.5 million. Wow. Which is nothing.
Yeah.
What now?
$6.5 million
On what?
water fund, bonds, and that's it.
And that was when we did about $11 million work on the water plant back in '05 and '06.
They need to contract our employees out.
Yeah, they do. They try to, by the way. Okay. Are we moving too fast? Is this what you want to see? Is this?
I would just like to see a balance between the two, of going up on both.
Yes.
Not trying to raise everything, but just instead of it always being on one side each year, which is what we've kind of seen, is looking at sharing that instead of it just being the straight cost for everybody, letting all levels balance that weight.
Well, luckily, we're, only 18% tax dependent. If you were to look at the county, I don't know what their percentage would be, but I would think it would be way more than 50%. They're dependent on property tax. So, I will say this too, most of the time we don't roll back. Under your administration, we've not rolled back. And, we had like one person complain in each of those situations. So it's not something you catch a lot of flack for either way. I think people are willing to pay for good service, and in Carrollton, they're not paying a whole lot for that good service in comparison.
And bond rating agencies and financial advisors, when they look at a revenue mix for a local government, especially on general fund, they don't like to see an abnormally high percentage in any one revenue category, because if something happens in that revenue, that one category is adversely affected, it puts the local government financial jeopardy. They like an even mix all across the board. We've got that, and so we've got a good balance, and so we're real comfortable with that. On page 1-12, we want to give you an update, as we always do, on SPLOST. Lori, just like property tax, we have a very limited collection period for SPLOST. We get checks from the county March through July, and the other months of the year that tax is collected goes to escrow to pay the bonds, the debt service on the 2015 SPLOST. So we're currently in our collection period right now. We started getting funds from the county in February. We'll collect through July. So we are forecasting basically this year about $1.8 million available. We got a check today that will be put in the bank tomorrow for $323,000. So actually, as of right now, we have a little over $927,000 in our SPLOST fund. So this is very, very similar to current year, prior years, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I was telling Tim, this is kind of a discussion for another time, but we're coming up on, in the next few months, starting to plan for the next SPLOST cycle. And we anticipate on beginning work with the county on that probably late summer, early fall. So it's already time to start looking into the next SPLOST.
Is this, numbers with or without the library?
No, that does not, we got to pay the library out of that.
That doesn't.
And I told Jim a while ago, we need to go on and pay them. We owe them $650, and I'll talk about that in the capital
Is
projects.
that where we're taking the spot? We take it out of supply?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But you brought in how much today, Jim?
$323,000.
All right. So 950. So that's about to drop back to 300 because we owe the library 650, and they're gonna need it to cash flow. They're getting 2 million from the state, but they have to front the money, and then, they're under construction. They're in a contract with Ray Lynn, and, they gotta be able to make the cash flow work, so we need to go ahead and pay them that balance.
What is that debt balance right now?
650 that we owe them.
Total on this,
Oh,
sorry.
950.
Yeah, about 9,
Okay,
927.
thanks.
Yes, sir.
47.
That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I guess the point I keep wanting to make, and I know I beat a dead horse every year with this, is we do a lot with what we have. We don't charge a lot. We're very blessed. We've got really good people. I can tell you story after story after story about where they're saving money. We have people here that cannot stand to waste it. We've got a 20-inch force main out on Tice Road. The end of it is rotted because of hydrogen sulfide, and we were looking at different methods to fix it and talked to different contractors, and we saw the price on the bore, and Mike said, I ain't paying it, we'll do this bore ourselves. Now, you would never know if we paid to do that bore. You would not know that he can't stand that, but that's why we have money. Or fake pulling will say, we are not paying this on workman's comp, I cannot stand it. It does not put another dime in her pocket, but she is that way. Or Tommy Holland on the projects he manages, this is just a waste. Or you heard me tell a lot of times about Danny Dyer and just how much water was in the sludge he pressed and hauled off. Most people in this room don't know we press sludge or haul it anywhere, but it was it $70,000, Tony? So you got a lot of people that do that all the time. Tony negotiated the sludge out of the sewer plant has to be pressed and hauled to a landfill. And again, if I state wrong numbers, please stop me, Tony, but the hauling was about 180 a year, 180,000. And the landfill fees were about 150. Oh, they were? Okay, I was wrong. He negotiated a deal with the landfill. They have to take their decant water, their rainwater somewhere and put it in the sewer system. They bring it here. They wiped out those land fees. So we cleared 200 grand, struggled with pen. There's nothing in this water. It's like rainwater. But how many truckloads they bring a day?
8 a day.
Okay.
Monday through Friday.
And so how many gallons?
4,500 per truck, 4,500 gallons per load. So we just figured 50,000 gallons a day.
It's nothing to our plant. It's 7 million gallon a day plant. It's nothing. And it took $200,000 off the books like that. And I didn't have to tell him to do that. So that's the kind of people sitting around this table. And I just can't say enough good about them. Erica, again, they beat occupational tax to death. I could go on and on and on, but you got a lot of people watching your money. And again, a lot of cities would be very blessed to have any of these folks. So
What's Chuck doing
What'd you say the tractor was on?
I was wondering.
I think it's about 100.
Timmy, you're not gonna brag on this guy.
Hell no. Did the mic pick that up?
He's in the other column, isn't he?
Just on the press plant.
Just the trucking part,
On the
we
press
budget 150. We're paying $15 a ton.
And they're 40-ton dump trailers, right?
We put 25.
25.
Okay, so, look, you know that, I wouldn't. Okay. All right, if you're ready, we'll talk about, some critical, infrastructure projects. A lot of attention to stormwater these days, and we've got some problems, in downtown, and we've broken this up into 4 phases, and we would like to propose to you that we do phase 1 and 2 this coming fiscal year, and 3 and 4 the following fiscal year. Maybe if you'd put up the next slide, we'll try to show you. Gosh, I can't see it myself, so. I'll tell you what, put the next slide up, please. This is the section around the Methodist Church. You know it was flooded. This is old piping and undersized piping, that's city piping in the roadway. This would be phase 1. We would like to start it as soon as possible. We would pay this out of SPLOST, and the estimate is $180,000. So we think that needs to be done this coming fiscal year, or actually very soon in the summer. If you put up the next slide, please.
I'm gonna play this out of SPLOST.
Yes, sir. But we can take it out of cash reserves.
We gonna have that much?
Yes, sir, we will. By then, yes, sir. Actually, you got it now. Oh, now, there's some development coming along West Reese Street, both sides. We've got flooding on Rome, and we need to rework that stormwater system. We also need to rework the sanitary system in that road, and there's road work to be done. The estimate on that is $600,000, and we would pay that out of the water fund. And we can legally do that. The next two phases, and again, that would not be this fiscal year, it would be the following fiscal year. Tommy, you may have to jump in here. Oh, okay, I picked up fast. Number 3 is the piping around Johnson Avenue and Barnes Street. And we're estimating that at $350,000. And then
Remind us where where.
that is at, what's the restaurant there at Johnson Avenue, y'all? Little Hawaiian,
Oh, okay,
Little
yeah,
Hawaiian's
yeah,
right
okay,
there.
I know.
All right. And then, the final piece would be, City Hall Avenue to Johnson Avenue, and that's estimated $170,000. Again, that, we would do that, not this coming fiscal year, but the next fiscal year. We can wait on that. But we think the first two, certainly the $180,000 needs to be done so we don't flood the Methodist Church again. And then the one on West Street needs to be done if we're going to allow development in that area because Rome is flooding. And again, we can afford it, we can pay that out of the water fund, and that's our recommendation.
So, Tim, in layman's terms, stormwater mitigation, what does that mean? Is that
It means the
bigger
road's
pipes?
flooding.
I know, but what are we doing to fix that?
Bigger pipes and getting it to the DOT, piping system, which will take it to the river.
So right now, our piping system is either not there or
It's choking. It's either the bottom's
Too
rotted
small.
out of it, or it's collapsed,
Okay.
or it wasn't large enough to start with.
is this pipe bursting type stuff or digging ditches?
Probably digging, it's budgeted at digging cover, so most of your money's gonna be in putting your roads back. This same kind of thing we just did on Dixie, or Carl Owens did for us on Dixie at the Tanner construction site, and, it's complicated and it takes a long time, and again, I'm very pleased how that project's gone. Did y'all get any calls about Dixie being closed?
No.
They made it across Dixie Street with a 42-inch through all those utilities, and this is complicated, expensive, dangerous work, and again, I'm confident it will go well.
Phase 2, that road on West Reese, that'll have to get repaved anyway that curb will have to get reworked by that
Right.
development anyway.
Right.
Is there,
As a part of it, you're right.
so that total cost could probably be a lot less, since it could be a shared item, since they'd have to do it anyway to actually get their development done.
Yeah, again, we think to accommodate this, we should do this. That's our recommendation. That's my
And
recommendation.
also, it extends over to Rome Street. By extending it all the way to Rome Street, it'll take some of the water off near the Little Hawaiian. So we really need to get that water that direction instead of letting it all come down to the Little Hawaiian where it flooded the time before. So yeah, it does benefit them, but we really need that access through there too.
Questions?
Is that gonna fix the lake of Roy's tires? It always comes in when it floods out.
Well, it won't totally fit. I guess if you look at the whole project, these are areas that'll improve it little by little, and actually there's more work that could be done to totally fix it, but that gets into the big box culverts that's running all the way to Highway 27, but I think
DOT needs to eat that.
right, this will get it to where we're only flooding with a really big rains. It kind of becomes a often occurrence of flooding with a smaller rain, so this will,
Just that one catch basin right there in front of the telephone building always floods out on Rome.
yeah.
This will solve that.
That's
Yeah.
what,
Yeah,
that
that,
will solve that.
the phase 3 will.
Yeah,
This
get
really
that
won't
one.
until we get to phase 3, because that's what's bypassing around and carrying a bigger pipe.
Okay. The next project is Bankhead, which we're out to bid on. We open bids the 25th. Okay. And I'm going to speak briefly, and then let Erica take over. Again, our estimated project cost is $3.2 million. You got a grant for $1.5 million. The balance would be $1.7 million. If you want lighting, that's another $500,000, and this would come out of our cash reserves. Correct, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Erica, you want to speak about this?
The lighting is something that our committee, I guess we looked at as we got down the road a little bit on some of the detailed plans. That's something we would ask you guys to vote on separately. Would like to move forward with the streetscape project, and I can get you more detailed plans for the lighting at that time. We did meet with a lighting contractor to get an estimate so that you guys can at least be anticipating that coming down the road. It would happen after, you'll see this in May, at your May meeting, but that would come after that. The project itself hasn't changed from what you've seen. It's basically phase 1 of Bankhead Highway from Cedar Street to Thomas Newell Way. It's a road diet with the installation of sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaping, and then we're also reworking a lot of the entrances and working with the property owners to make improvements for the streetscape project, and then also in many cases improving the sites themselves to the private property sites as well. So.
The next one is the Tanner Greenbelt Spur, Tanner Southwire / Southwire Greenbelt Spur into downtown. We've talked about this. Tanner is spending some significant money to do the section of Dixie. There's a DNR grant of $200,000 for this. Our balance would be $514,000. And again, this would pay Jim out of reserves, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, I think we've talked a lot about this project, and it's one that there are a lot of employees at Tanner and at Southwire, and this would bring them into downtown walking. I know Tanner's extremely interested in this happening. We've got some easement issues we're working on, and that is headed in a positive direction. I will tell you, I'm getting good feedback about cooperation from property owners. So again, this is one we would recommend. The next one is the Cultural Arts Center has flooded ever since it was built. Water oozes up out of the floor, and we believe with a fair amount of certainty that it's groundwater. We need a stormwater system around this building. We don't have a layout yet. We don't have a design yet. We know enough to put a WAG on it, about $180,000. But the good news is this can be paid out of hotel motel tax, so this does not hit any revenue stream that you've talked about tonight. And again, you'll get, when we get it designed, get it bid, and get the price, that would be a project y'all would vote on. All of these would be projects you would vote to award when the time comes. The last one would be the city portion of the T grant for the Alabama Street Greenbelt Spur. This is a Greenbelt Spur from 4th Street all the way along Alabama, past the, used to be the Gold Kiss farm supply store, across the railroad track, all the way down to the trailhead at the river. Total cost is $2.35 million. We got $1.5 million coming from DOT. City portion would be $860,000. Erica, have we paid any of that $860 in engineering?
Some of the engineering costs that we have incurred will count towards our match.
So, Erica and Jim, what do we think the out-of-pocket is on that? Is it $660? You know?
I'll tell you, the one thing that we do need to consider, and the reason why we didn't put it in there as
Okay.
far as the engineering costs go, is that cost estimate is a couple years old.
Okay.
And so we want to be conservative. We
All
feel like this is the max that it would be. But we do need to have a little bit of buffer in there for, just in case construction materials and that sort of stuff have gone up, which we
Okay.
assume that they have.
All right, Libby, if you put up this last summary sheet, please. This shows you all of those projects. You're not voting on anything tonight. It's just something for you to consider. It shows you where the money's gonna come from, and it's about $3.6 million from reserves, not general fund reserves, but from reserves that's not budgeted. So you have a pretty healthy reserve, and we spend it and we replenish it. We spent $3.5 million at the sewer plant this year, and that water fund is back up. We spent, we did roofs at the rec department that were $500,000 or so, might have even been more than that, and it's back up. So, y'all just need to think and talk amongst yourselves, and, you don't have to decide tonight. But, there are not projects that we would put in front of this list, let's put it that way. Certainly we want to build a fire station, but we would plan to do that with SPLOST. Certainly we want to build another parking deck. We would plan to do that with SPLOST, with the next SPLOST issuance. But for this coming fiscal year, these are what we would recommend to you. And as I always say, we work for you. If you have different desires, you give us our marching orders and we'll go march.
These are all projects we've been talking about for 3 years.
Right,
These have been like long-term
right.
planning. Great to see them on the list.
If there are no questions right now, I would ask you to adjourn to executive session. Let's talk about a couple of items, and then we'll come back. And if you want to go through the details of any of these budgets, the department heads are here. I would recommend we go through the larger budgets. The smaller ones are almost minutia. So, but if unless you have questions about these projects now. If you think of something when we get back, we can talk about them then. So,
I got one short one.
Yes, sir.
For the Arts Center stormwater, we're using hotel motel tax.
right.
I'm assuming we can use that for things that help benefit tourism and tourism-related things.
Right.
Could we use that money for the bankhead lighting and then use cash reserves for the Arts Center stormwater? I know it's just one versus another,
Right.
but just in terms of, that is an entrance corridor. That does kind of showcase the city, that just using one money fund for another.
I'd have to go back and look at the guidelines for hotel motel tax. You've basically got 3 buckets that hotel motel tax is kind of distributed between. One are kind of direct marketing organizations, which that's basically CVB and the chamber. You've got one that's tourism product development, which you can do some of the Arts Center stuff with that. The AMP events come out of that. And then you've got one that's less restrictive. It's not gonna, the one that's the least restrictive that I would say you would pull from for the lighting, it's not gonna bring $500,000. It's
No.
just, yeah, it's,
I think it was 180 is what we put down.
right. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said the lighting.
Yeah, the lighting, I'm not saying the full amount for it.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
saying
okay.
just partial, making sure that we're not using that entire amount from cash reserves for that project.
I
We're
mean,
using a smaller
I guess
amount.
that's up to you guys if y'all wanna move things around. Because like I said, there is enough to do, with the unrestricted, to do the 180 on the Arts
Yep.
Center, so.
Thanks.
And we
Motion to
Couldn't move to executive session, right?
executive session. That's right.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
We're gonna go to the fire training center just next door on this same floor.
You said you want Excel? Downtown.
Get a motion, go back
Motion
in.
to enter regular, open session.
Gerald.
All right, y'all, we will do,
Second.
All in favor? Motion carried.
we will
Go
give
ahead.
you as much detail or as little as you want. I would suggest we do the larger budgets first. Peter has to leave, so I'd ask him to do his first. If you'll turn to page 3-45, that's rec administration. If you'll look at 346, you'll actually see all the increases and or decreases in that budget. She's gonna bring it up here in a minute, I think.
I wasn't listening, I was signing my name.
Do you have these sheets, or do you want me to? I would run through the summary at 346, and then the parks would be 348, and 348, and then programs would be 350. I would just run through those, because that's actually the changes.
I got you.
Unless you gentlemen want something different.
The big changes in ours with our Parks and Recreation Department is we moved a lot of stuff around this year to kind of make it a little bit easier for us to follow, to help with the finance department and everything else. We don't have a lot with the recreation on the administrative side. The one thing that we did take in this year that you will notice is we have taken over on the athletics side, the Carrollton Bluefin organization. They used to have their own checking account, personal checking and everything else, and we kind of, Tim and Jim thought it'd be best to go ahead and bring them into our world. And so you are looking at an increase in that budget of about $140,000. They end up covering pretty much all their costs for that. We did have a slight increase in some of the parks maintenance, and a lot of that is just greenbelt upkeep right now. We are still trying to figure out exactly how much that's costing each year, and it's getting closer and closer for us to being able to figure it out. So, for the most part, any increases that we did have this year, we try to offset those also with the increase in our revenue that we have from Parks and Recreation Department. So we did increase that a little bit to offset the cost. One of the things too, and this is Kent's division, we're trying to get another prison crew as well. And we've been working towards that the last few years. And once we get that, we have that in the budget every single year, but we just haven't been able to get one yet. But we're working towards that. And that'll help a lot with keeping up
Just tell her
with
to put the
cemetery
summary up.
and also the green belt as well.
We have to pay for that, for prison crew?
Yeah.
Oh,
Pay
how
for the
much?
guard.
Oh, pay the guard, okay.
Yeah, you pay the guard.
And look,
Oh, okay, and lunch, okay.
you wanna join?
What does that end up being, about 60 a
I'll
year?
let you do
Yeah,
it.
58 it used to be, yeah.
I'm good.
Libby, roll that up just a fuzz, please. You'll notice a $666,000, which seems satanical decrease, but that's his capital. He did a lot of roof work last year, and that's done, so.
I know discussions of the track over by Lakeshore were had. Is that in this budget to
We've
read
got
it?
that in, yes, we did have it in capital items this year, we serviced that. That hasn't been done since '99, probably is in need of it.
It is, yeah.
Definitely, but it is something that we talked about.
Awesome.
He's got, what, about 6 vehicles to replace?
Correct.
Some of those are 20-something years old. 150,000 mileage is not bad, but they're just horrible. So you'll see.
For, Peter requested the track resurfacing and a new liner for the swimming pool. And he put in his budget document that he could wait one more year on that. And so I will tell you that we have recommended on those two items bumping back until next year. So those two things are not in this proposed budget. Vehicles are, but the track and the pool liner, we plan on doing next year.
Is the liner better than What was it before?
Plaster,
Yeah, it's better than plaster, okay.
it is just for competitive swimming.
Yeah, okay.
Was the track on there for last year?
Yeah.
And so it's getting pushed back, it'll be 2 years pushed back now.
Right.
Does that affect anything from a competition or?
No, we use, if we have any track meets, we use the high school, just because it's an 8-lane track over there that they have. And they let us use their stuff all the time, and they use our stuff all the time. So it's kind of a great partnership with us. So if we need something, it's just as easy for us to use that for our age meets and everything.
Peter, what was the price on that track? I forgot.
It'll be around $175,000.
Okay.
Have mine, man.
All right, you wanna go to programs? You're gonna see some shifting around where we've got a marketing department now and money that was in some of these big departments for advertising and publications and all that went to marketing. So it wasn't an increase, it wasn't a decrease, it was just a shift in bookkeeping.
We did a lot of that this year, shifting, moving stuff around, make it a little bit easier to follow. There's not a whole lot of huge changes in the program division from this year, and that's your gymnastics, your Special Olympics, your senior center that we have as well. And, not too much of an increase or a decrease across the board.
Like $65,000 total. If you want to see the breakdown, it's to the right of the top of these summary pages. Anybody got questions on the rec department?
Peter, I'm gonna ask you something about the senior center. Are people bused there from other neighborhoods who don't
Yes.
have transportation?
Yes.
Okay, I just wondered.
We got all sorts of buses coming in and out of there all day long.
That's good. Great.
Oh, I wouldn't here. I really wouldn't. All right. I'd like to move to police, if you don't mind. That's a big budget. Joel, could you turn to page 332? That would be all the changes in your budget. He's got a $203,000 increase for the year, and we can go line by line on each of those.
I think the majority of it's gonna be salaries and insurance, because the one that I did, it showed a $37,000 increase in its, starting with uniforms, just a price increase, rest from this is 5,900 there. Professional services is, that's the one where, it comes out of my budget now, like for the Child Advocacy Center, the new Carroll County Mental Health Court. I'm just adding it to it, I didn't have it in the past. But I get invoiced for that if it comes out of that. A lot of the things that we bought last year, well, a couple things in particular require the repair and maintenance contract. One in particular is AFIX, which is the thing you allowed us to buy for tracking fingerprints, for finding, and that's exactly how we were able to solve 2 recent burglaries in a matter of 2 days. One was at Carrollton, Cadillac, and one was the armed robbery Saturday at Family Dollar. I mean, this would have took a year, 6 months to a year to get it back from the GDI, and Corey got it back within 2 days. And it's because of that equipment like that. Things like that just added to that line item, repair and maintenance of the equipment.
One of his big increases are the cars that you approved at the last meeting, the debt service for those 21 patrol units.
Communications have $40,000 increase, but one of the reasons is we're still operating under the CSII, which is the phone system we use. And Sam Lynn was at 2 years ago, year and a half when we upgraded to the Sync Global. And we still had the old numbers in there, and I got with Mr. Triplin, got the correct numbers that was charged to our department. And then, are you putting the roof in here?
Yes, on page 3-31, $87,100, you see that is the police department's portion of the new roof of public safety building. That's 2/3 of the cost, and then the fire department is budgeted for 1/3 of the roof cost.
Oh, that roof is 20 years old, was it?
That roof's older than that.
So in the back part of the building, man?
See, we moved there in 95. June of 95.
It's not the new building, it's the building. right
But we
next to
meet,
it.
do city
That-
council meet?
No, not that one.
No.
Oh.
We just did the training, the training with fire training range, that roof.
That's part that was the church.
That's when he was.
Oh, okay, I got you, 10-4, I understand.
Oh, and it's
They
replaced
put
by
a different one,
another.
yeah.
25,000 is just in gasoline costs, just because fuel's
I
going up.
think that's the number.
The bottom one?
Yeah.
We were able to decrease jail by 20,000. The biggest reason I think is under that criminal justice reform bill where you don't keep somebody in jail no longer than 48 hours in traffic court. So our judge does first appearance every 2 days. If he's not having court or here already, then we've installed videos, conference in there, we'll send an officer over, they'll bring the inmate out, and he'll video conference with the judge, and he'll say, here's your bond, if you can't make it, 48 hours of the release. We're not having to pay as much, and we don't, yeah, so. We get a good deal from the sheriff when you do that.
Any questions on police?
Is that horse really yours?
No, we worked the thing at the VFW Saturday.
Oh.
It was a kids thing like the 2 cylinder club, and Jared just got up on it.
Oh, I thought that was real.
It's a real horse.
I mean, I thought it was really the city of Carrollton's horse. I was like, what is
No, I hope not.
Did y'all see that?
That's what we need.
I love
I'll vote for that.
Wonder what the insurance would be on a horse.
it. You know, we have Staples just right across the street that seal.
We're gonna do it right along.
Fake you like that.
Questions for police, please? All right. Jimmy, how about fire department? Page 336 would be your summary.
Most of our increases too will be the salary and benefits. The rest of it pretty much is repairing or replacing aging equipment. We added 3 new employees last year, so we needed to increase uniforms, $3,900. Our annual Christmas dinner, we were a little bit short, so we raised it $300. Vehicle repairs, we raised $10,000. Our air packs are really beginning to age, and there's 15-year lifespan with bodies, and they are about $1,100 a piece. So we need to get on a replacement program for them. So this year we budgeted to replace 10 of those. A little bit of a price increase on the 800 megahertz radio, maintenance, annual maintenance. We had to swap medical gloves that we wear due to the fentanyl and other drugs that are out there now. The latex gloves wouldn't offer enough protection from that. We need to replace all the mattresses at 3 of our fire stations. They're about 15 years old and extremely worn out. And same thing with our hydraulic rescue tools, more commonly known as jaws of life. We have 4 of those units, one on each truck, and they're between 15 and 20 years old. We'd like to replace the oldest set, and they're pretty expensive. That's about $17,000. And we want to replace the last Crown Vic, which is driven by the fire marshal. It's a 2006 model. And we would like to replace it with a standard four-door pickup truck that could be handed down to other parts of our department as vehicles get older. And that's it. We're asking for a $116,870 increase, which is about 1%.
Now, where's that 1% where you're talking about?
The increase that I asked for over the department, that I control, not payroll benefits, just
Oh, I
operating
see.
supplies and stuff,
Yeah.
about 1%.
And again, if you like, for instance, salaries, that's the 3% and the Christmas bonus and then the cost of healthcare.
Yep.
So, Jimmy and Tony are the cheapest two people alive. And for me to say that means they're quite cheap. Okay, if there are no questions for fire, Tony, if you would do your three departments, please.
Water filter plant 3-68. Only changes in salaries comes through the finance department, what we expect is categories. Rents and operating leases we see decreasing, but about by the same amount as we anticipate our R&M operating account to increase. As Tim mentioned earlier, we decreased all of the advertising stuff over to the marketing department, so that comes out of there. So $35,000 increase based on expected electricity costs. We do participate in load managements in the areas that we can, and we recognize that we do have peaking hours, and we try to cut the demand during those hours. Try to cut our power bills as much as we can, because it is a large portion of our budget each year. We did remove the raw water reservoir pending approval from the EPD, and then we put $2,000 in there for replacement of a 10-year-old computer that runs some of our software at the wastewater, at the drinking water plant. So that budget is actually decreased from the previous year, I believe, when you total it up.
Mainly due to not having the reservoir problem.
Yes, that's a big portion.
That makes you look really good.
Well, I mean, I want to point out what I think is an error. I don't understand that number. It should be a lot larger.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's not
So
much
we
for salaries.
will get that corrected before we officially present this budget to you, but that, I don't know what's happened, but we'll figure that out. That should be a lot larger number.
Any questions on the water? The wastewater can be found on 3-76. The very first item on that page is an increase in the number of employees at the wastewater department by 1 employee, and it's really an increase, but it's not. When I came to work here, there was 19 employees in that department. Today, there's 16. We just see the need for that additional person. We've had a lot of turnover in that department in the last year. We had a lot of overtime, and I believe it'll actually be absorbed because of this employee will be absorbed by less overtime in the department. Those other increases comes along with just increases in salaries and group insurance. Professional services is a reduction. There was some stuff that we did last year in there with Willow Construction on some clarifier work. So there's another one coming up in there, but it's in a different category. R&M buildings, we did some work on our buildings last year, so you just said $19,000 decrease. It was something we budgeted for at the wastewater plant. We did that work, so it's complete. R&M grounds, we see installation of handrails at our equalization pond around that structure. It's the only area that doesn't have, those handrails are steel handrails that are painted, and they're 30 years old at this point, so we want to replace those with the rest of them that match. And the decrease of $135,000 for landfill fees is already been mentioned here tonight. Was the deal we struck with our landfill so that we could take their leachate, and now we don't pay any tipping fees at the landfill for that sludge.
Let me explain that number. We could have cut it 200, but I left some of it in there in case we needed it.
Yeah, we
Cut it
don't never know what
135.
happens in the
So if
future.
you wonder why we said 200 a while ago and 135 years, I left some money in there for cushion. Only cut it 135.
And then you'll see the decrease of 1.102 was one-time capital purchase on some of the headworks projects that we've completed at the wastewater plant. Got $109,000 in there for motorized equipment under the capital expense. That's for 2 more of those bush hog tractors that we run out there at that site. We'll also take 2 out of service and trade them in on those. And then a $23,000 increase on vehicles. That's for a flatbed 4-wheel drive truck. And then $180,000 to do some work on another unit there, clarifier, that we want to do in the upcoming year.
So I'd like to point out, Roger Herring grabbed me several months ago and kind of blessed me out for what shoddy shape Tony's tractors were in. He'd run them so long. How old are those things?
Those are, I don't know what model they are, but there's 7,000 hours on them.
Yeah, he said, man, you need to buy some tractors. I said, well, how do you get married at a guy that keeps repairing? I think you were redoing the power steering units in them or something, and they're running in wastewater, so they rot. Anyway, he gets the good out of it. He's got some bush hogs. I'd like for Walt to see that. I don't think there's anything on them that was original. They even made wheels out of steel. It looks like that old joke my father-in-law used to tell about, except for replacing heads and handles, I've had the same axe for 30 years. That's the way his bush hogs are. I just don't think there's anything on them that was original. The gearboxes are changed, and the blades and all the framing seems to be redone, so he really makes it count. So I don't want a tractor. He's worn out, I can tell you that. There's not much left of them. So, and as far as the rails at that wastewater plant, on the second and third shift, the person there is by themselves, and through the weekend. So if they fell in a basin or whatever, we would not know what happened to them. Their body would probably disappear. So, in the process. So the handrails we're lucky it's gone this long. So you want to do the mechanics?
Yeah, on
Is
the,
that advertising for you?
Yeah.
Have you seen that process?
I was there when I was a kid.
Yeah, you don't want,
the same handrails you remember as a kid then.
Wow.
if there was
I
any,
mean, like open pits of water.
yeah,
nothing
churning,
around.
that in the water, it's,
Well, they do now. We've been getting around those, so there's handrails up now, and these are kind of, this will end it. I mean, this is the end of that project. We haven't done it in multiple years. Facilities maintenance is on 3-83.
these are the mechanics.
No increase in the number of employees over what's been budgeted over the last couple of years. Some increases in R&M equipment just based on what we see in our budget from this year. Looks like we're spending more, repairing, not a lot more, but a little more. Same thing with building repairs. R&M grounds, we want to do a little more work around some of our lift station access roads, do some improvements around those in the coming year.
How many lift stations we have?
We have 11
Okay.
we're currently maintaining.
That's the pumps that pump sewage, to be clear. That's what those do. Those
And
are not
anytime you'd
drinking
like
water
to go
pumps.
to them, we'll be glad to show you where they're at.
Right at lunchtime.
Yes,
if you
at
wanna see
lunchtime.
it.
Uh, The generator maintenance, you know, we actually had a grant to put in over $1 million worth of generators, and we got those running, and this is just a service agreement that we run from year to year. We did get an extended warranty with those things, so if there is any work to be done, the warranty will cover it. This is just for the general maintenance, oil changes and servicing and load testing. And, we've got $140,000 there, the bottom item on that page for rehabilitation of our Oak Mountain and Little Talladega Buffalo Creek lift stations. It's mainly for the Oak Mountain lift station that we're gonna spend most of this money on. Replacing pumps and the actual wet well out there to more reliable, pumping system. That system's gotten very old. There's 4 pumps in there, but it takes, 2 of the pumps are lifting it and the other 2 are pushing it further. So we wanna update it to a more modern submerged pump system.
And you've already done, a number of stations, Brock
Oh,
Street
yes.
and
Brock
a lot of
Street,
work
Little
at
Talladega,
and a lot of work at
Carroll
Martin
Tech,
Cemetery.
Martin Cemetery.
This group of people, this group of mechanics and electricians are just excellent. They do, they save us hundreds and hundreds of thousands. I know I got all excited and sent y'all a picture a couple of years ago with a pump this was a drinking water pump station they built up on Moat Road at those tanks. And, again, that's the kind of thing I get excited about. We built that for about $450,000. I would say would easily been over $1 million if we, you know, done that the traditional way, but these guys are able to do this. We've got an excellent electrician, an excellent chief mechanic, and they're really talented people.
That entire staff.
Yeah, they really are. We got a young guy now that's an HVAC expert. I don't know how we keep him, but just very, very talented people. So when you see $140,000 here, if we were to hire engineering firms and design it and bid it out, it would be many times that cost. So if you wonder why our water and sewer system makes money and others don't, that's the reason, that kind of work. Any questions? Mike, if you would do systems upkeep, please. These are the pipe crews that he has that maintain the sewer lines and the water lines. That'd be 3-72, please.
Yeah, we really tried to cut back this year. Some of the increases we really the money around and started about $300,000 increase. The road patching, Jim put that in my budget this year.
That's McIntosh. It's a local firm. It's the same guy that used to own Benton, Georgia, and they did all the patches for the gas company, and they did them for WSA when we all worked up there. He's out of Whitesburg. There's not many people that do what's called a DOT grade road patch, but it's very expensive, and we got a lot of work to do. So that we were paying that item before. You see it in your monthly report, but it's just, this is the first time it got moved where it should be, which is in Mike's budget.
Where was it before?
Where were you paying it, Jim?
We've been paying it out of SPLOST.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
And we moved it there.
it's about $21 a square foot to put road back in patches, so.
The next big thing is the roof, for the building down there. I think that building is built in like 70s. It's never had a roof put on, so we got to put a roof on it. It's about $45,000.
This is the blue shop on Kingsbridge Road, backs up to the swamp.
We had to increase our operating budget by $50,000 for us that we used to maintain the water and sewer system. Just due to the increase in everything that's going on.
There's 1.6 million in there. That's the budget for that work on Rome Street that we talked about. And also we carry about $1 million a year in this on where they work on sewer lines all the time. He's got a crew that does nothing but televised lines, and then we do we got open contracts with different contractors to do, you know, pipe bursting and lining. There is a line, and again, Walt probably saw this go in. It was corrugated metal under Highway 27 at Root Street, and it had sanitary sewer in it. So corrugated metal shouldn't be on the state highway anyway. Corrugated metal should never have sewer in it. It'll eat it up. And that line had been there, I don't know how many decades. And this contract y'all awarded a while back to this company called IPR, they went in there and we call it blowing a sock in the line. They dry the line out, they bypass pump it, and they put this sock in there and they pump a chemical on top of it and cure it and line the pipe. That way it doesn't leak anymore. So, do y'all remember what that cost us? Well, I know we reported to y'all in the monthly report. Was it? $150,000 maybe, so.
I think 150 on that, if it was part of a bigger project. we
Okay,
did
so-
other, But I think that was about 150.
And that's the same job we bid out when, y'all first took office and I first got in this job. It was, I think the price to pipe burst, it was gonna be about over 300,000. So anyway, again, it's a lot of money, but it's another case where we know what we're doing and we did a good job and saved the city a lot of money. And it should have never been built that way in the first place, but they are constantly, working on the sewer system, and that's why our flows are low. That's when we have, capacity left at the wastewater plant, and it's a really, really good investment. And these smaller towns, and a lot of bigger towns don't do that and don't do it well. But again, if you ever, at night, think about why does this water and sewer system have money when others don't? This is why. This is where we make it. We invest wisely. So, sorry, Mike, I didn't start to interrupt.
Just a couple other things, and just some additional pumps and things that will probably fail on us in the next year, and we'll need to replace it, and don't fail, we will continue to use them, but I got one in there just in case, and then we have to buy some pipe locating equipment, just about $9,200. I say we really cut our budget this year.
All right, if you would go,
At 1.6, is that the, all that storm water?
600 of it is the stormwater and sanitary sewer at West Reese. And the $1 million is the standard $1 million we put in there to work on these sewer lines.
So it's really only a 600 grand increase,
At that, yes,
not
correct,
a 1.6 increase.
correct. I think he put it in a different line item, that's why he called it a 1.6 increase. It may have been in one of the plant lines before, but we've been spending close to $1 million a year on line work.
But why is it a 1 million increase in the?
I don't know, Jim. Can you explain that? Was that in a different line item before? That'd be on 3-73. Because we keep a big number in his line work every year.
I was looking at the Encode spreadsheet too. On page 3-70, maybe explain a little better. Infrastructure line work, 2.1 million, that includes 600,000 for the Reese Street sanitary sewer drainage. If you'll notice a couple of columns over to the left, last year, his budget was, or current year's budget's only 500,000.
Okay.
He was real capital intense. He had to buy motorized heavy equipment and some other things last year, and we reduced his infrastructure budget to 500,000 current year, and so we tried to bump it back up to 1.5 million this year, plus the 600,000 for the drainage on Rome, for the sanitary sewer on Rome Street and Reese Street.
Okay, for an increase of 1.6 million.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right, Mike, if you do garage at 3-19, we've got a mechanic who is an expert in fire trucks, and we've got a mechanic who is an expert in anything on diesel, and they are excellent.
What page?
3-19, please. Really not much change.
Not a lot of change in those departments, in that department there. $10,000 that we budget every year for various computer equipment and read trucks, cars and various things. So we run that line about 15 different programs for all our trucks, police cars, fire trucks, stuff like that. has to be updated every year and sometimes even replaced, so that's a good replacement on that.
Again, I wanna brag on, there's only 3 people in that department, but unless Connie's billed to her, does she build the garage?
No,
So there's 2 mechanics, and there's 3 mechanics, there's 4 mechanics, but 2 are phenomenal. They're all good, but 2 are phenomenal.
We'll let them figure that one out.
Yeah,
Just leave it like that.
well, they know who they are, I'm telling you, they know who they are. Sanitation, Mike, last 2 pages, 386 and 387. Again, not a huge change on the department that way. This is your garbage workers, and they make us money. And at Walt's direction, and we appreciate his support, we really tried to bump their pay up. They're still, they're not getting rich by any stretch of the imagination, but they're making a lot more money than they were when you gentlemen took office, and we very much appreciate what you've done for these folks.
one of the biggest things, the landfill fees, and that's due to the tipping fees, is the increase in the debris, it's gone up to $50 a ton, and I see that probably continue to increase as we go forward. $2,000 increase, just for hobos and dumpsters and roll-off containers. Fuel costs has gone up due to we also have to put a roof on that building, it's $32,000. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. It's not a huge increase for a department that size, and again, this department makes us a lot of money. I don't know what y'all's time schedule is, we can keep going. The way Libby's got this put together, you can see real clearly what's gone up, what's gone down, and you can take it home and read it and ask us questions, and we'll get back with you. If you want to keep going, we'll have Erica do the Cultural Arts Center and her departments. You want to do Cultural Arts, please?
Can you keep going? I think it's on page 3-55 for the proposed changes. We have slowly been folding all of the arts-related expenses from the rec department into the arts department, rightfully so that we can see exactly how much it costs to run the facility in the center. A few changes, notable changes under salaries. Tim, that may be an error because I know that that looks higher than it should be for a theater coordinator position.
Well, what it probably is the raise on everybody else.
3%.
3% plus,
Yeah.
okay.
Plus that position, yeah.
Plus the Christmas gift.
Yeah,
Okay, I think that might still be a little off.
okay.
Anyway, so some notable things. Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, we're pulling all of the repair and maintenance of the building into the Art Center budget, which is that $40,000 increase. It's also going to cost us about, I think, $15,000 to have the rail system inspected. We're supposed to have that inspected every 5 years, and that has not been done. The rail system is how they raise and lower the props. It's done with weights, and it has to be inspected. And so that's a pretty huge line item. However, it won't occur every year. We'll only have to do about once every 5 years. Several of the things have been transferred to marketing. It's a pretty marketing-intense budget, and all those have been transferred to marketing. If you go to page 3-57, electricity is a little higher than what we had anticipated, so we're having to raise that budget. And then also, I think Tim's mentioned this, but we do have several leaks that need to be fixed on the roof. We feel like we can do those with that $80,000, but that's also in the budget. I can go into the rest of the stuff in detail if you want me to.
Wait, you're saying power costs increased Should've put the solar panels up.
I was waiting on that. Touche.
Yeah, but we'd eat it back up and fixing the roof where they were sitting there.
Like I said, I would like to say that we've also increased our revenue. I was just looking at it from the past 2 years. I think FY 15 and 16, we brought in 150. This year we anticipate 360,000 in revenue. So we are, a lot of that's because we've got a lot more programming. We've doubled our programming in that facility.
What's the increase?
It was 150 in 15 and 16, and this year we're anticipating 360.
That's amazing.
So we've folded in a lot of functions that have not previously been there, like the Carrollton Symphony Orchestra. That's their new home, and all of their related programs. So you've got the jazz orchestra related to them, and then also some classes and some private lessons. We've developed a professional ballet program. And you guys did that last year in your last fiscal year. That program continues to grow, and I think that's probably an area that we'll be able to see more revenue year by year. We've also got a professional performance season, which we didn't used to have, which is where we bring in professionals, and we've added and filled in the gaps in our youth programming and everything from theater to dance to visual arts and music. We've also added a film program, and then we've also folded in a few special events. New this year will be puppetry arts. We're trying to include some of that. And then we also have some arts and education matinees for schools that we've started doing as well. So, if y'all have any questions?
That cleaning, so the art center's cleaned by an outside
Right, correct,
company.
green light.
That's something to think about.
We actually have, we've beat that to death. We have found that that's the easiest way to handle it. We have, Green Life cleans the depot, Green Life cleans the city hall, Green Life cleans the arts center. So we certainly have, I feel like been happy
Yeah.
with them, so.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We've got a lot of experience with them. They've been doing the depot for several years. We eventually found that it was, and I will say through trial and error, we found that it's easier to contract that out at the Arts Center. We tried to hire a position for that, which is where you'll see that custodian position that got removed.
Yeah.
And it's just easier to sometimes contract that stuff out.
And they're doing a good job.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, we'll call them back sometimes and so, it's not perfect. I don't know that you're gonna have a facility maintenance group that's going to be perfect, but they always come back and fix it if it's not perfect. So they've been good to work with. And I assume Libby manages the one here, but so far so good, I think, with City Hall
Oh, they
too.
do this building too. Maybe look into that.
Yeah, it just started here.
Yeah,
So
that's really good.
Tim, is there anything in Art's budget for that wheelchair ramp we were talking about?
Oh,
Handicap going on the side?
no, it is already ADA compliant. They just wanted something at a different door. Are you still hearing about that? I'm not.
Well, I hear it once in a while. I'm just-
Okay.
So we do have handicap access, ADA accessibility into the building, to all areas of the building. There were a few things that didn't meet code that we fixed when we did the big renovation last year, like the stair rise and run and stuff like that into the theater. But that's all been fixed. We could certainly look at adding some additional, but we do need code.
The sign that was on the corner, it was taken down when we redid that intersection. Is there a new sign up?
It's not up yet, but we just did the PO for that.
Okay.
We have a new sign with our new branding.
Cool.
We're also doing some banners like you see on the columns that will show all of the different arts areas that we serve in that building. So you'll see a lot of changes in the next probably 2 or 3 months to the exterior.
What'd you say about marketing? Just move to a different budget or something?
We've moved it to, we're trying to consolidate all of our advertising, printing, and all that, those sorts of things into one department, into one budget, so that they can be managed by, basically in one area. That helps us in a lot of ways. Take advertising, for instance. We're able to package ad buys now. When before we might get hit up by a bunch of different organizations, a bunch of different departments.
Yeah.
Now we have one person
No, it
overseeing
makes
that.
sense.
Yeah.
And I see it now, 10.3.
Yeah, so,
It's also paid out of hotel motel.
some of it is, some of it's in the regular budgets, like, for instance, police and, rec and stuff like that. Some of it's paid out of hotel motel through the CVB, and then some of it's paid from the other departments.
Do we have a marketing budget somewhere?
should be in there. Jim, what did you move it to? I don't,
It's, department number 425, and that should be on, page 3-41. 3-42 should be your departmental summary. Yeah. But a large part of that money is internal transfer.
No, I
Some
understand.
new money, but a lot of it's not.
It's going from no department to one budget.
I didn't know if that was one of the ones you were gonna go over or not.
you want me to go over it?
Absolutely.
Might as well, since we're here.
Well, it's basically a reflection of the new position that you guys funded last, I guess, was that last fiscal year, 2 fiscal years ago? And we weren't in a position to integrate all of our advertising and marketing efforts of each of the departments last fiscal year, just because she started so late in the fiscal year. But we did get that done this year, and a lot of these are just transfers over from other departments. I can go through them individually, but it's everything that you see printed, essentially.
And the website?
And the website as well. The website is so very close for us to show it to you. I'm very excited about it. Tim's seen it, or he's seen the draft of some of the work that's been done, but I feel like it's very user-friendly.
Do we know what drop date on that?
I can check with April. They're very close. I actually thought it might already be done by this particular meeting, but I think they're finishing up some things with it.
That would be great.
It also includes social media too. We're gonna be trying to fold in some of the social media into this department. Not all of it, but some of it.
All right, what else y'all wanna hear? You wanna hear engineering? You wanna hear, we're down to small budgets. You wanna hear finance? You wanna hear city manager? You wanna see, or you wanna take us home and adjust it?
I'm good.
Sounds good. All right,
Thanks, y'all.
I wanna stress this one more time. Where'd Libby go? Fund change summary. If you look at the bottom line, it's an overall budget decrease of 1.89%, even with all that we added in here. Now granted, a lot of that's capital that we're not doing this year. And you're gonna see that, but I just think that's a well done budget, $882,125 decrease. Proposed budget is $45,855,289, so. We spend a lot, we think you get a lot for it. It's a good group of managers.
We keep getting awards in all areas.
Yep,
And
everywhere.
People love this town. For good reason.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, and thank you, Tim. Good job, leadership. Thanks, everybody in here, in the room for all the hard work you've done. Appreciate it.
Including you, Chuck.
And Chuck as well.
Especially Chuck. As underpaid as he is, especially Chuck.
I'm the hardest at Chuck.
I bring the glue factor.
Glue or blue?
Are we adjourned?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.